Welcome back. Super excited. We're into the Android Studio environment. So in the previous lesson, we simply created a new project. And by default, it creates a project and gives us several files within the left navigation pane. So here I'm going to focus slowly but surely on each one of these items. Okay, so it may seem a little overwhelming once you get into the Android Studio, and then you're probably thinking, well, geez, there's a lot of things here. But not to worry, because this will become second nature to you, because you'll be working with all of this day in and day out, because hey, we love to code, we're developers, we are interested in becoming a professional Android developer, so we are going to get used to this. All right, so I'm going to focus strictly in this lesson since my approach is to take a look at the concepts and then apply them. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at and talk about what these folders are, what they are created for, and what's in them. So we try to understand how things work. So by default, we have an app folder, right? So within the app folder, I have a manifest folder, a Java subfolder, a generated Java subfolder, and a res or resource folder. Okay, so this is short for resource. And then, of course, our main folder is Griddled Scripts. So these are the types of folders, default folders, once you create a new project. And then on the right side, you'll see the main activity.kit. Remember the kit, right? And then here you have your package name and then some code. We're going to get back to this code, but focus here right now is on these folders. And then on the tab next to it is the activity main.xml file. Okay, so if I click on the XML, notice it gives me all of the tags that are part of the XML file or the data. Remember, XML is not a language, but it contains data that you can send across independent platforms. So if I were to choose and take a look at the activity underscore main.xml, I'll see some tags here. The main activity.kt gives me some standard class called main activity. And then, of course, on the left side, I have these folders. So focusing on these folders, what are these folders? So I'm going to start with the Java. But before I do that, let me bring up my presentation here. Perfect. So this is good notes for you as well. So let's take a moment to review the most important files. Before you even do anything in Android Studio, you need to know this. So what you can do is notice you'll see several subfolders. One of the folders that we're going to take a look at is Java first. So in this Java, you have your main activity. And this is the entry point for your app. So this particular folder called Java, a subfolder rather, right, within your apps folder, is your main entry point. So when you build and run the app, the system launches an instance of this activity. So let me test your knowledge here from previous lesson. What is an activity? Perfect. Yes, it's just the first screen or any screen on your app itself. That's an activity. And within your activity, you have views, you have view groups, you have fragments, so forth. So the system would launch an instance of this particular screen or activity and loads its layout. That's what's all in the Java subfolder. Then you have the res folder here, which contains the activity.main.xml. So if I go down here, notice this right here tab, the activity.main.xml. This is coming off of the resource folder. So the XML file simply defines the layout for the activity's user interface. It contains a text view element with the text hello world. Well, let's take a look. So if I were to expand the res folder and then click on the activity underscore main.xml, and you'll notice here's some text called hello world. So as soon as I look at this particular XML document or file, on the right side, you'll notice a screen that shows a sample activity. So let me make it bigger, and I can do this by holding the control key down and then the wheel mouse. Okay, I can always expand and make more room. I can also make this floating by clicking on the settings button. So if I need to have a floating mode, I could do so, split mode, and I can change different modes based on my own requirements. So here you'll see the hello world. If I make this bigger, there we go. Okay, which is right in the center. And the way it's laid out right now by default is that it's using constraints. And I'm going to talk about this later on, but for right now, just understand, or part of this is the layout, and then of course your activity main, right? So from within the activity main folder or resource folder, you can now work with this. So this is basically your app, by the way, okay? And then next is your Griddled Scripts, which is right here. So you'll see, once I expand Griddled Scripts right here, you'll see two build.griddle. First is for your project called deliver cart, and then build.griddle for your app itself. And the reason why you'll see these two files is because each module has its own build.griddle file, but since this project currently has only one module, and will most likely work with the module's build.griddle file to configure how the Griddle build tools compile and build the app for us. So again, these are the build tool, and we talked about Griddle concepts in the previous lesson. So importantly, let me expand Java too, so you can see the actual contents of the subfolder Java, and then manifests as well. And let me expand, or maybe collapse this a little bit better here. Perfect. So now, once again, quickly, the Java folder, which is the main activity right here, the Androidmanifest, or the actual packages right within the Java. The main activity, which basically is the entry point for the app itself. The system will launch an instance of this activity and loads its layout. Then you have the resource folder, which contains the activity underscore main.xml, which has different text views with the text called hello world. Then we have the Griddled Scripts and the app manifests. So again, these are the most important files that you will see in Android Studio, and you need to know this. Okay, so practice with this as much as you can. Understand these files, your main files, where they reside, how you can take a look at the resource folder, what's part of the resource folder, and that's your homework, by the way. What's part of the Java folder, and what's part of the manifests file at this point in time. So let me minimize this. All right, perfect. So now you know a little bit better on the various folders that are created once you open up Android Studio, and the default Hello World app is there. And this is the first basic program for any person, right? This is our standard software development within the software development industry. We always use the Hello World program, right? That's one of the traditions that we follow. So once again, now you have the app. And again, I'm doing this by holding the control key on my keyboard and then using the wheel mouse to make this bigger or smaller. All right, so if I need to change this, for instance, and it's pretty powerful here, so if I were to say hello world and then say dash ClayDesk, perfect. Notice it changes the text. So that way it's pretty neat, okay? So in this lesson, just wanted to cover the important folders that are created once you create a project or an app, and then the default hello world program. Similarly, under the manifest folder, you have the Androidmanifest.xml. If I were to open this, you'll notice it'll open up the XML file and just gives you the XML version, the actual schema that's being loaded, and the application that is part of the XML file. And then this is where it'll give you the label of your app, which is deliver car, the main activity. Again, this is the entry point, right, of your activity. whereas the activity underscore main, which resides in the resource folder right here. Okay, so this file, this tab is part of the resource. This is your main activity.xml file. And of course, your Griddled Scripts. So I hope this helps. Practice with this, very important. If you have any questions, post them in the discussion area. And with this, let's move to the next lesson. And in the next lesson, I'm going to demonstrate how to create your virtual device so you can actually see what are some of the options. Maybe you like to add your live Android phone or connect your live phone with the Android Studio. So instead of using the emulator, how do you use your phone? So I'm going to demonstrate that in the next lesson. So I hope this helps. Practice with this, and let's move to the next lecture.